Every day, the fossil fuel industry caused massive pollution around the world. There just have been thousands of spills. There would be times when I would close my eyes to go to sleep at night, and I would just picture burning bodies bobbing around in a water that was on fire, and just watching those bodies floating in the oil, and that was basically the nightmare that they were talking about that could come true. I worked for Shell for about 10 years. So my job really was to listen to workers anonymously about their safety concerns. I've listened to thousands of oil and gas workers. In that time, I witnessed a lot of workers being exploited, working in unsafe conditions. They said that they were often afraid to speak out, that they had made attempts to do so. And also there's a sense of silent intimidation, that people who try and speak up feel that something bad happens to them afterwards. In the oil and gas industry, people are often working with highly pressurized systems, very sensitive systems. There's huge risk of fire or explosion. There was one time a group of workers who appeared to be working a most extreme shift pattern that I've ever seen, which was 31 days non-stop working with 1 day off, and then 31 days on, 1 day off. They just begged for help, please help, because they were exhausted. There was actually someone who said that 2 of their colleagues had died on the job through lack of sleep, long working hours, and just the stress of having to continue producing oil, and it killed them. In Qatar, there was a group of workers who did the worst jobs. They were brought in from Nepal and treated not at all well. The Nepali workers, they complained about how bad the food was, lack of good personal protective equipment. I saw similar things in Egypt, people being exploited, a situation where workers described almost an apartheid level of discrimination, where contractor workers were denied access to toilets and to even drinking water. So this feels kind of systemic, actually, where you can get away with it, where people can't see it, offshore, far away, poor people, people of colour, these are the people who are being most exploited. I used to have people on repeat over the years saying, we haven't been paid. This would be contractors. We haven't been paid. Please, sir, please can you help us? Because I can't feed myself and I can't feed my family. So when you have workers coming on site who are saying that they're starving, that is such a clear-cut case of exploitation. They say, well, it's not our responsibility. We've paid the contractor. And I would be like, well, they're on your site. They're running parts of your site. Surely you want people who are running your site to actually have food in their bellies. So there was these 2 tracks, really: exploitation of people and local environment, exploitation of the planet, wholesale. So Shell, in particular, and others, have been extracting oil and gas in the Niger Delta for over 70 years. When they arrived, it was paradise, and now it's hell on earth. And when I first arrived, there'd actually been a pretty big incident just outside Nigeria on the coast. So an offshore oil production vessel, which had had a spill that produced a slick the size of Belgium. So if you go and look at a map and see the size of Belgium, that's a massive oil spill. And what happens is, because it was very coastal, that oil was just washing up on the shore, going up the Niger Delta rivers into people's lands, affecting their livelihoods, affecting their health, affecting their ability to fish and farm, or even have any hope of clean water. It didn't make the news. It made the news so little that when I started working with that operation, I didn't even know that that had happened. Every day, the fossil fuel industry caused massive pollution around the world. This constant drip, drip, drip of spills. If you're only spilling 100 barrels of oil, but you're doing that 100 times a year, you start to see the picture. Loss of primary containment is the technical term. That means nothing, right? What does that mean to the ordinary person? If you say a leak or a spill, people understand that. That's the industry way of dressing up something that's really bad, and they're very good at doing that. I would say that Shell are 100% driven by profit, despite what they tell the outside world. They make themselves sound like they're, a good corporate citizen. No harm to people and no leaks. And they had values in a PowerPoint presentation saying, we have a just culture, we respect everyone equally, we're open, we're listening, and just, that's a dream. I never heard any conversation about net zero. I spoke or heard from thousands and thousands and thousands of workers, and none of them ever mentioned that. So at the operational front line, no one that I know of was aware that that was something that was a ambition. They just hell-bent on drilling and drilling and drilling until there is not a drop left. And then when you've got those people who stand up to that, environmentalists being sent to prison because they've dared to stand up, then that narrative is really twisted. I had probably considered all of the big oil companies to be like imperial overlords. They think they have an absolute God-given right to exploit people and the planet. And I think that's really the bottom line, and we enable that. Our governments enable that. We're paying through the nose. We're paying our taxes, and that money's going to the fossil fuel industry. We're paying into pension funds for savings, and then we're paying increased, unaffordable energy bills. So we are basically just a machine that is delivering profits to the fossil fuel industry. The subsidy that the fossil fuel industry get from governments around the world, $7 trillion last year, just imagine what we could do with that money. My kind of moral compass was already twitching from the get-go, but I thought I could make improvements. I'm doing a job that is at least listening to workers, trying to help them improve the safety conditions, trying to prevent injury and fatalities, and trying to prevent some of the worst polluting incidents. And I think, we've all got to stand up. And if we want the systems to change, if we want to hold these empires of evil to account, then we have to stop that now. That era, the fossil fuel era, has to be over. We have to look forward to an alternative. Otherwise, we're dust. We are dust.